If you have a story you'd like to share with the channel, just go to astheravendreams.com and click the button to do so. And of course, thank you. I've had too many paranormal incidents in my life to count, and a few glitch in the Matrix events as well. I'm not sure which this story is. Regardless, it's one of the most confusing and unforgettable things that has ever happened to me. Approximately 3 years ago, in the spring of 2021, when I was 41, I lived in a townhouse-style apartment complex. My front door was surrounded by 4 other entrances, all accessible from outside. Nearby is the headquarters for a large company, and they commonly placed employees that are short-term or relocating in this complex. I'd previously met one of my neighbors, that's front door was right next to mine. We'd have casual, neighborly conversations when we would see each other as we're coming and going from our cars, walking our dogs, or getting our mail. Let's call this neighbor Lucy. So this particular day, as I'm returning from getting my mail, I run into Lucy, who is returning from walking her tiny little dog, who must be at least 15 years old, with one blind eye, scraggly hair, and tongue constantly hanging out. My dog, who is 5 times the size of the little old man dog, and normally loves every dog, growls and absolutely does not like Lucy's dog, or any other dog in the immediate area for whatever reason. This always made me wonder if there's some strange energy around. Anyways, Lucy and I start casually chatting, and she picks up her little old man. My dog is inside my home, but must have heard me, so he looked out the front window. Seeing Lucy's dog, my dog starts barking. I can't let him out because of his almost aggressive dislike of this little old man puppy. The barking isn't too loud or distracting, so we ignore it and continue talking. After about 5 minutes, one of the other neighbors comes out of her front door. We'll call this neighbor Blonde Woman. Blonde Woman looks to be in her early 30s, good-looking in a short top and tight sweatpants. She asks us if we can quiet the barking dog because she works from home and it's very distracting. She goes on that she has a dog too, that I should put my dog in a kennel when I'm busy so he won't bark. She mentioned she's only there for 6 months, and she lives in Connecticut, but is on contract for the large company nearby. I apologize, calm my dog, and chat to Lucy for a few more minutes. Here's the thing. The blonde woman came out of the same front door where I absolutely know a single Indian woman with a distinctive limp, in her 50s, lives. Alone. I had seen the Indian woman come in and out of that exact door. There are only 4 doors near me, and I know who lives in each apartment. The first time I met the Indian woman, she stood at my front door, standing way too close to me, and trying to let herself into my apartment as she told me she is from Connecticut on a 6-month contract for the large company nearby. She mentioned how she hasn't met any people and asks if there are any good coffee shops nearby. Later, I even commented to my son about her being pushy, walking into my place, and I thought that she was trying to imply that we should go get coffee together, or maybe trying to make friends with me. Don't get me wrong, the Indian woman seemed really nice, and I felt a good non-threatening vibe from her. She just stood way too close when talking to me, and was pushy in a strange way, the way that she was trying to walk into my home. The blonde woman seemed bossy and unpleasant. After the blonde woman goes back into her home, Lucy tells me more details. Lucy says the blonde woman is very overbearing, a close talker, always texting her to go get coffee together, and inviting herself into Lucy's home. She says that she has a young daughter who visits once a month, and keeps her dog in a kennel in the back bedroom, which I've seen since the back bedroom window faces the front, and she leaves the blinds up. The dog is in the middle of the room in the kennel, with nothing else in the room. Lucy says that she walks the dog twice a day for an hour each, bathes the dog every day, and keeps jazz music on for the dog all day. All things I have noticed myself. I've had conversations and seen the Indian woman come out of that same front door several times, but I've only seen the blonde woman only once before. I was getting out of my car and Lucy, the blonde woman, and the Indian woman were all standing outside in a circle talking. I was not in the mood to get caught up in a conversation, and I put my phone to my ear to pretend that I was busy on the phone. Don't judge. Lucy can get very chatty. Back to the current day, as Lucy is telling me about the blonde woman, I stop Lucy and ask, "Wait, I thought the older Indian woman with the limp lived there." Lucy is utterly confused. "Who?" she asks. I describe the Indian woman and tell Lucy the Indian woman told me the same life story as the blonde woman. Lucy is perplexed. She's never seen the Indian woman and has absolutely no idea who I'm talking about. I probe a bit more and think I'm starting to look crazy, so I don't ask any further questions. I change the subject, and shortly after, we end our conversation. I spend the next couple of hours going over it in my head. I know both the blonde woman and the Indian woman live in that same unit. Both said they live alone. Both have a dog they keep in a kennel all day with jazz music on and walk twice a day. Both have a daughter they don't see much right now, and both are from Connecticut. And then my son comes home. I ask him, "Hey, who lives in that apartment?" And I then describe the Indian woman and the blonde woman. He says the Indian woman lives in that apartment, and the blonde in the other apartment. I say, "No way. There's the old lady that lives alone in the other apartment, and that is the 4 front doors. Lucy, me, old woman, and blonde, or Indian woman." He has a moment of realization and becomes just as confused as I am. We cannot figure it out. We have seen that one room with the window open that's just for the dog. We've seen both the Indian woman and the blonde woman come from the same door. And my son has seen both of them driving a car with Connecticut license plates. We leave it as some weird, confusing thing, and we're going to try and see each woman and find out for sure. A month goes by, and I noticed that they've moved. A young pregnant woman, her husband, and their 2 dogs have moved in. I hear the dogs barking all day, every day, while the adults are at work. I secretly think and half joke to my son that it must be because of the shape-shifting weird energy in that apartment. During this time, a maintenance guy comes to my place and is on my deck. I notice the dog barking and make a comment about it, and then I decided, screw it, if I look crazy, and I asked, "Hey, maintenance guy, who lived in that apartment before the barking dogs people? What did the person look like?" He says a single blonde woman from Connecticut, here working for 6 months for a big company nearby and living alone. Maintenance guy comments how she kept the dog in a kennel in the middle of the bedroom at all times. I try to skirt over the reason that I'm asking, but it doesn't work, and I tell him about the weird shape-shifting woman my son and I have seen. I ask him where the Indian woman lives, and he has no clue who I'm talking about. Soon after, a second maintenance guy shows up to help with the repairs in my unit. I already looked crazy enough, so let's go with it, right? I ask the second maintenance guy who lived in that apartment. I don't describe anyone, just ask, "Hey, second maintenance guy, who lived there before the barking dog people moved in?" And this second maintenance guy describes the Indian woman with a limp. Describes how she kept the dog in the kennel, working here for a big company nearby from Connecticut, and lives alone. Both maintenance men have been in the apartment, talked to the woman, and are sure of the story. They start arguing. No, it was a young blonde woman that wears tight clothing. No, it was a 50-year-old Indian woman with a limp. They both describe the same backstory for each. I don't look as crazy now, plus I managed to really freak out the maintenance staff. So, this is my story of my shape-shifting, close-talking neighbors. The Indian woman wanted to be my friend, and the blonde woman wanted to be Lucy's. Both were absolutely really living, breathing humans, but only one existed depending on who they met or who I asked. This happened a couple of years ago when I first moved to Summit County, Colorado for a job. I lived in Dillon and worked in Silverthorne, and for those who don't know, they're right next to each other, pretty much separated by I-70. Part of my routine was going to the Silverthorne Rec Center before work for an hour and a half of exercise to get my day going. And for a few months, it was pretty great. Then, it got weird when I decided to go in on a day off. See, it was 10 a.m. by the time I got there, but the sun was directly to my right, meaning to the north. I was parked facing west towards Highway 9, which runs north and south with Loveland Pass to the south and Kremling to the north. Check out Google Maps if you need to at this point. It was around March, meaning winter in the mountains was still in full swing, and the sun most definitely should not have been in the north, but in the south, due to the seasonal tilt of the earth. I remember being incredibly confused by the state of affairs to the point that I ended up calling my dad to tell him about it. I double-checked the compass on my phone, and I verified with Google Maps that I didn't get turned around in the mountains, which is an incredibly easy thing to do if you've just moved up there. Sunrise and sunset can be a bit skewed due to the mountains blocking the sunlight. Eventually, I just shook my head and got on with my exercise. I had tried hallucinogens when I was in college, and the level of confusion that day reminded me of my college trip, although I was stone sober by this point. I don't like the idea of going crazy, and by the time I walked out of the rec center, a couple of hours later, the sun was in the south, in its right place. My only regret was not taking pictures, but damn, it was weird. This happened on one of the first days of January of this year. It might not be impressive, or the typical type of mystery, but to this day, I keep thinking about it, and I'm still baffled. My two friends and I had met to hang around out in the evening. It was a Friday, but there weren't too many people around, since Christmas, here in Spain it lasts until January 7th, had just finished recently. We were on at a table outside of a cafe and cocktail bars having some beers. It's important to mention that we were not already drunk, and that we are three young, tall, fit men accustomed to drinking regularly, which means that we have a high tolerance for alcohol. Also, I would like to mention that one of my friends is a policeman, and my other friend is an engineer student, while I'm already an engineer. We bought 4 33cl bottles of beer, and the bottles were of the same brand, Aguila, which has a unique blue label attached to it. The table was round and we were properly distributed around it, forming the vertices of an equilateral triangle. That means that each of us was watched by the other two at all times, as so was any person that could pass behind. We were joking and laughing and almost finishing the second bottle, when suddenly my fellow engineer friend stopped laughing and interrupted to say with a mystified expression, "What is the beer doing there?" When I heard it, I couldn't make any sense of it, but when I realized what he meant, I stopped laughing very quickly as well. One of the small bottles was no longer a blue Aguila beer, but an Estrella Galicia beer, with a red and black label color. It was also of the same size. Now, it's time to state a few things. One, you could say the three of us got confused, and that not all the beers were of the Blue Label brand. I would respect that thinking, as I would probably think the same too if I were you. But not only my two other friends and I are 100% sure, but also the offer we bought was an Aguila offer. I personally split the fourth bottle of Blue Aguila among the three of us. As I stated earlier, we are young boys, and we've never taken drugs. We are mentally and physically healthy, and we had never experienced anything paranormal before. 2. There were 3 tables around us, separated by approximately 1 to 1.5 meters from us. Only one person came behind one of us, and me and my other friends saw her moving at all times, without having a beer, and much less doing anything suspicious. The idea of a person approaching our table, taking one of our empty bottles and then replacing it with another different empty bottle is just preposterous. And 3, I thought that maybe one of my friends might have played a trick to mock us, but we never looked away from the table nor each other. At least, I didn't. We became serious soon because we were afraid of having drunk something possibly poisoned with some kind of drug. We were thinking about how to properly investigate what the hell had just happened, when a random mad woman came from inside yelling at us and ordering us to leave. Apparently she was the owner of the bar next to the one that we bought the beers from, and she was pissed off because we were sitting on a table that was from her place. We didn't notice, since at this spot, there are many bars very close to each other, and the tables were almost the same. We joked about this because it felt like as if an NPC was forced to spawn to divert our conversation and spoil our attempt to investigate any further. However, I can't really tell what happened, and up to this day, we keep talking about it. I decided to write about this after something even creepier happened to me yesterday, but this time I told no one about it since I feel like I won't be believed, and I'll start to lose respect or credibility. I can't blame anybody though, since I'm also a skeptical bastard that would also think that I'm either crazy or lying for attention. Since here I can speak anonymously, and you'll probably want to know about it, I'll make a post about that soon. Some of you were very interested in my other experience, and as I replied to you all, I will now post about my other encounter with the absurd. It was past midnight, and I was on my way back home just like any other day. Unfortunately, on this occasion, I was walking alone. My route back home usually goes through an alleyway located between an old convent school and a block of flats. I've never seen anything strange, nor have I heard of anyone seeing anything anomalous. But this time it was different. I was approaching the entrance of the alley when I suddenly noticed a shape. A tall man in dark clothing, possibly with a hood, walking towards me. I guessed that the person was black, but I'm not sure since it was 20 to 30 meters away and I wear glasses, so I'm not the best at picking up precise details in the distance. Despite that, even though subjective, I somehow felt the shape was staring directly at me, and that feeling was not pleasant at all. No one else could be seen, and I was the only one walking through the alley. I felt a bit startled. Although where I live is a tranquil place, getting mugged is always a real thing. This person was already inside the alley and kept moving towards me for a few seconds. I would say that he reached between 1/3 and 1/2 of the total length of the alleyway, approximately 45 meters long. Then, I quickly looked down, and when I looked in front of me again, there was no trace of the eerie person. Absolutely nothing. Just the empty passage, and a teenage couple walking hand in hand in the background on the adjacent street. I didn't look away for more than 0.75 to 1 second. I didn't feel scared. I was just utterly confused. I hastened my pace to peek around corners, and when I reached the end of the alley, I saw no sign of that person. The next perpendicular street was 40 meters away from the exit of the passage. I've made the measurement using Google Maps. So this person should have walked back the 15 to 23 meters covered inside the passage in 1 second. With a conservative estimate, 15 meters in 1 second, he would have had to have run at around 54 kilometers an hour. I checked for any doorway or entrance between the shape and me, and there's only one. It's a rundown, decrepit wooden door from an abandoned ancient house. I tried to push it open, but it wouldn't budge. The lock was so old and unused that it was corroded by rust. It looked like it hadn't been opened in decades, and probably would take a long time to open, accompanied by a loud creaking sound. It's hard to believe the shape took keys and opened the door quietly. I apologize for the length, but as an engineer, I can't help but be technical and provide as much information and facts as possible. This happened about a month or so back in the city that I live in, up in the northeastern United States. Let me preface this by saying how much rage and contempt I feel in my heart when driving on major roads behind cyclists, particularly during peak rush hours. I don't mean folks who rely on bicycles to commute to and from work. You know who I mean. The competitive, sunglasses and spandex leotard-wearing variety. Just out there messing up traffic because of their sport. Anyway, cue the image that I just gave you as I'm driving to the gym after work. I'm crawling at 15 to 20 miles per hour or so below the speed limit, losing my damn mind behind this clown. I obviously have nothing but time to stare down the source of my frustration and take in every inch of his bike and obnoxious leotard. It said something about Team Fubar, which I later looked up. It appears to be a cycling team based in Los Angeles, California, nowhere near where this happened. Anyway, the bike was lime green and the outfit was loudly adorned with squiggly lines, with 2 big bold X's on the legs. I noticed those because they reminded me of the X on Chopper's hat from One Piece. Eventually, the cyclist decides to turn off the main road we were on and makes a right onto a dead-end road beneath a small overpass. Brimming with joy, I exclaim, "Good! Because of you, this drive was really foobarred." Hilarious, I know. And then I triumphantly advanced to the freaking speed limit. I hit all the green lights, turned left onto a short bridge, and hit a red light after crossing it. This all took maybe 45 to 60 seconds. Now, who's at this intersection parked on an adjacent bike trail? You guessed it. I was really caught off guard by this because I instantly recognized the lime green bike, the Team Fubar logo, and the big X's on the pant legs, re Chopper. Now, there is absolutely no way that he kept up pace and wound up there, because A, I did not see him after we parted ways, and B, there's no way for a cyclist to travel that fast on a bike. I thought, okay, weird. Maybe there's a trail or something that connects the dead-end road to the bike path, and went about my gym excursion. On the drive home, I scoped out the area and saw that it's nothing but water. There is no bridge except for the one that I drove on, way ahead of him. Now, unless this guy rode his bike across the freaking water like Admiral Aokiji, there is simply no access. When I got home, I studied the area on Google Maps and found absolutely no way to get from the overpass he turned under to the bike path across the river, neither without passing me along the way, nor in such a short amount of time. I've driven through the area many more times since then, and I am still bewildered. The only explanation that I can muster is that it was 2 separate cyclists from that team, with matching bikes, who both happened to be out riding that area or meeting up with each other. I'm fairly certain it was the same guy, though, so I don't know about this. Again, this happened in the northeastern US. so I'm not sure how big a following or membership a California-based team would have out here. It was bizarre, and my day was really foobarred. I, male, mid-20s, was diagnosed with some kind of seizure disorder that isn't epilepsy, as MRIs and EEGs show short, intense bursts of seizure activity. After my first seizure, I've started to have extremely vivid dreams of specific situations that have never happened before, and having them happen the next day. Here are the two most recent examples from this last week. First, dreaming of winning $150 on a scratch-off, even though I've never played them. The next morning I went to the store I remembered from my dream, which I have never been to. And, to my surprise, they had the same $150 winning ticket. It absolutely blew my mind. Last night was the strangest experience I have ever had. I had dreamt that I was going to pick up a prescription. Totally normal, right? Well, not so much. For some reason in the dream, they gave me this weird white and blue bottle, instead of pills in a regular orange prescription bottle as they have always come. When I woke up this morning, I had a notification from the pharmacy that my prescription was ready. When I picked it up and I was walking out, I felt something totally different in the stapled shut prescription bag. It felt like a bottle inside of a bottle. No way that it could be the same one from the dream, right? When I got back to the car, I ripped open the bag to find the exact white and blue bottle from the dream, down to the manufacturer's name, inside of another orange bottle. This is all so new to me, and honestly, it's making me feel quite different. It started off as conversations that I just chalked up to deja vu, but now it's getting really weird. What do you all think about this? Just a heads up, the story does mention attempts of suicide, self-harm, and the likes, so if that is not something you want to listen to, I recommend going to the description below and choosing the timestamp for the next story. So, to start, I keep getting the lingering thought in my mind, and it keeps coming up more and more, that I'm in a coma. Yeah, I know it sounds insane, but I really get that feeling. I was about 18, and I had about 23-ish suicide attempts. And I don't mean just holding a gun, I mean straight up overdosing on purpose. So, last attempt I was 18, and I had a gun in my mouth. My sister showed up before it happened, and I'm here, but I had multiple dreams saying stuff like, wake up, get up, etc. And it keeps lingering in my mind, what if I did pull the trigger? And it won't go away or be quiet. To make things worse, every time I make a post or talk to someone about it, I reset. Like I'm in a time loop and forget everything after I wake up, only having these memories come back like 2 hours before I make the post to begin with. I'm not joking, trolling, or even trying to make a joke. This is genuinely freaking me out. Every loop is the same in the big things, but it's the little things that change. I'll go to the same dinner, but the smaller things are changed, like the menu, or the posters, etc. Like I'm in a different place, but also not just enough to be different, but not the same day as last. For the gamers out there, even when I'm driving, I see glitches in the roads. Like, straight up texture missing, and an endless pit, it looks like. Even when I'm not high, it's either my eyes skizz out, or it's like I'm seeing through the cracks. Like my mind is finally starting to realize I'm in a coma in the hospital. It won't convince me I'm not in a coma, because that's what my mind would obviously say, but Can someone just say that I'm not, just to give me some stress relief? And for context, this happens every time I'm super high, but I forget it's the next day, so I can't remember to not smoke at night. But the more weird thing is, when I'm not high, I still go through the loop. I only realize it's a loop when I am. And the worst part is, after I get off Reddit in like an hour, I go to bed and reset the loop. And I can't stop myself. It's like after writing, I get possessed to go to bed and sleep, and I'm left with the realization and fear that I can't stop this loop no matter what I do, because it's a loop in a coma. Almost like my mind is wanting to keep me from realizing I am in a coma so badly that it put me in a time loop inside of a coma, almost like a double wall. And now I'm getting even more scared that I'm gonna get put back in the loop, and I can't do anything to change that. Even making this post is a part of my loop. I feel like I'm in hell. The remote control for the TV in our bedroom went missing. Not that surprising, as we have a toddler who loves remotes and likes to hide things in random places. I figured it would turn up soon in his toy box, or the dog's bed, or in the dishwasher, as has happened once. Anyway, when it had been missing for about a week, I was pretty fed up. So after our son had gone to bed, my boyfriend and I decided to have a proper search for it. We turned that room, and subsequently the rest of the house, upside down. We had definitely both taken the duvet cover completely off the bed and shaken it at least once each. Plus, removed all of the pillows to look down the side of the mattress, etc. After a while, we both kind of simultaneously got exasperated and just stopped for a moment. Standing by the side of the bed, trying to think of where the hell the stupid thing might be. I was convinced that it must be in the baby's room, the only place we hadn't searched. Then I looked down, and it was in the bed, as in plainly in view, half under the duvet as though tucked in for the night. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up and a chill went down my spine. I knew there was no way that it had been there the whole time. We both separately completely stripped the bed and had shaken out the duvet. Our son was asleep, so there's no way that he put it there. My mind immediately jumped to the fact that my boyfriend may be pranking me, but when I looked at him and asked him, he looked just as shocked and white-faced as me. He swore that he did not put it there, and I believe him. He seemed just as freaked out as I was. My maternal grandmother worked in a hospital. She was on break, and after using a small restroom for employees, with only 2 stalls and a double sink and those old cloth rotary towel dispensers, she took off her gold wedding band. She placed it safely nearby and washed her hands, then looked to see that the ring was gone. She knew that it had not gone down the drain, certainly not dropped onto the tile floor as she would have heard it or seen it bounce. No one else had come into that small area. She literally got down on her hands and knees looking everywhere, and it was not there. She finally had to leave. She told her nice coworkers, but it was never found. She says that it was impossible that it had gone missing. She lived and died, never hearing the term glitch, but she did have a few. So that, my friends, was this week's collection of Glitch in the Matrix stories, a collection of the weird, bizarre, and odd stories that happen within our simulation situation. Yes, I've said that before, and I will say it again, because it's still a fun way to put it. Yeah. Weird stories, strange stories, not necessarily scary stories, but definitely odd and bizarre. And hopefully it was a collection of stories that you personally enjoyed. I did, as I always do. I genuinely think these are always entertaining. Entertaining may be the wrong word to use, but you know what I mean. They're always intriguing and interesting, and to listen to them is always an entertaining situation. So, always an entertaining activity is a better way to put it, I guess. Yeah. It is still hot. I know I complained about that last week. It is hot here, and my brain doesn't do well in the heat. I don't do well in the heat. I am bad at summer, as it would be put by some people. I'm just bad at summer. But I'm doing my best here. The basement isn't too bad, but the upstairs is a bit unbearable. But I spend pretty much my whole life down here, so really, I'm doing all right. How are you doing? You doing well? Let me know if you're doing well. If you're not doing well, I understand, but if you are doing well, also let me know. I would like to know that you're doing well. It's important to me that my listeners do well, because y'all are amazing people, so. Yeah. All that said, friends, I hope you all did enjoy the video. If you did, please do hit that funny little thumb button that's down below the video. That'd be fantastic of you to do. If you are new to the channel, that's the word I'm looking for, and would like to subscribe, please consider doing so. That would be very helpful, because that helps the channel grow, kind of thing. If you're not new to the channel and you're listening again, welcome back, and thank you, as always. I feel like the glitch stories have my best return listeners, so, yeah. You can join Patreon membership to get early access to content like this, if you feel like doing so. If not, totally understandable. It's never expected, but it is always appreciated, so if you do it, you have my appreciation. And if you don't, you also have my appreciation, because you listened to the video and got to this point, so. You can also do super thanks, which is a tip to the channel, and yeah. Not really much else to say. Oh, wait, there's the word of the week. Every Monday, we do what we call, well, let me correct that. Pretty much every glitch video, which is not always Monday, and it's not always new, so it's pretty much every glitch video. We do what we call the word of the week. On the screen right now, and several moments before this moment in time, this exact second in time, is a collection of all the comments from last week's video who left me a comment with the word of the week. All of these people on the screen went above and beyond, and they are amazing. If you didn't comment with the word of the week, that's totally fine. I still appreciate you. It's never, ever, an expectation or a requisite to listen to my stuff. It's just cool of you to do so. And that's right, doing so makes you just a little bit cooler in my eyes. Yeah. And with the summer heat, you want to be cool, right? So, anyways, thank you to everyone who commented with last week's word of the week. Again, if you didn't, that's totally fine, but thank you to those who did. This week, the word of the week is one that's a little more fun, if you will. The word of the week is going to be whimsical. whimsical. It is a whimsical word, or it is a fun word, means resulting from or characterized by whim or caprice, subject to erratic behavior or unpredictable change, or full of, actuated by, or exhibiting whims. One who does things that are unanticipated, seem a bit out there and unexpected, would be said to be whimsical. So, use it in a sentence. I will screenshot your comment and put it in next week's video. Yeah, that's about it. So, again, thank you to everyone who listened to this point and those who didn't. I hope you're having a beautiful weekend. Beautiful week. It's not the weekend. Oh, if only. Beautiful week so far. Hoping to see you again here very soon. But until then, remember, you are loved, you are valid, you are important. You are the best you that you can be. Do not forget it. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And of course, until next time, my friends, much love and sleep well.